I stand in my new three-bedroom colonial home in suburban Ohio Keys, trembling in my hand after 8 years of grinding work since age 20. No family money, no college fund, no safety net, just sweat sacrifice and student loans. I paid off myself while working double shifts at the warehouse and community college. The mortgage papers still smell like fresh ink. Then my phone buzzes with a text from my mother that makes my blood freeze. "We're suing you for theft. You stole what belonged to your sister. Our lawyer will be in touch tomorrow morning." The memory hits me like a sledgehammer as I stare at that text message. 8 years ago, on my 20th birthday, my parents Margaret and Frank called me into the living room of our modest ranch house in Millerville. The conversation lasted exactly 7 minutes and changed my entire life trajectory. "Damon, you're an adult now." My father announced, his weathered hands folded across his construction worker's belly. "Time to stand on your own 2 feet. We've done our job raising you." My mother nodded from her spot on the faded blue couch, her graying hair pulled back, in the same tight bun she'd worn for 15 years. "Your sister Jessica needs our full attention now. College applications, AT prep, all that expensive stuff. We can't split our resources." Jessica, 18 at the time, sat cross-legged on the carpet, scrolling through her phone with perfectly manicured nails. She didn't even look up when they essentially exiled me from the family financial plan. "What about my college?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. "Community college exists for a reason," Frank replied curtly. "Work and study, plenty of people do it." That night I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling in middle school. Down the hall I could hear my parents discussing Jessica's upcoming senior year, talking about campus visits and application fees with an enthusiasm they'd never shown for my future. 3 weeks later, I moved into Mrs. Patterson's converted garage apartment for $300 monthly. The space measured roughly 12 feet by 16 feet with a hot plate mini fridge and a bathroom barely large enough to turn around in. The concrete floor stayed cold even in summer, and I could hear every car that drove past on Maple Street. My first job came at Stevens Manufacturing, a sprawling facility that produced automotive parts for Detroit assembly lines. The work involved lifting heavy machinery components, operating hydraulic presses, and enduring the constant din of industrial equipment. My shift ran from 6 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon, giving me just enough time to grab a quick meal before evening classes at Midwest Community College. The routine became my religion. Wake at 5, shower in the cramped garage bathroom, drive my beat-up Ford Ranger to the factory clock in precisely at 6. 8.5 hours of physical labor that left my back aching and my hands permanently stained with machine oil. Then the 20-minute drive to campus, where I'd sit in the back row of calculus or engineering fundamentals, fighting to keep my eyes open while professors discussed concepts that felt like foreign languages. Dinner consisted of ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, or whatever clearance items I could find at the grocery store. I became an expert at coupon clipping and generic brand shopping. While other students grabbed coffee between classes, I drank water from the fountain. When they talked about weekend plans, I scheduled extra study hours in the library. Meanwhile, Jessica's social media painted a different picture entirely. Photos from State University orientation, her dorm room decorated with new furniture, and expensive betting group shots from fraternity parties and football games. Every image showed a carefree young woman exploring college life without financial constraints. My parents visited her campus twice during freshman year. They never once asked about my grades or stopped by the garage apartment to see how I was managing. The academic workload at community college proved challenging enough without the exhaustion factor. Advanced mathematics required concentration I could barely muster after 10-hour workdays. Laboratory sessions in chemistry and physics demanded precision when my hands shook from fatigue. Term papers had to be written on a second-hand laptop that took 5 minutes to boot up and frequently crashed without warning. But something unexpected happened during those grueling months. The combination of manual labor and intellectual challenge began forging a resilience I never knew existed. Each successfully completed semester felt like climbing a mountain. Every passing grade represented a small victory against overwhelming odds. My professors at Midwest Community College noticed my dedication. Dr. Martinez, who taught engineering fundamentals, often stayed after class to answer my questions. Professor Williams, who ran the mathematics department, recommended additional resources when I struggled with advanced calculus. They saw something my parents had missed: genuine determination to succeed despite circumstances. The transfer process to Ohio Technical University required meticulous planning and financial gymnastics. Every credit hour cost money I could barely afford, even with in-state tuition. I applied for every scholarship grant and work-study program available. The applications demanded essays about overcoming adversity, and I found myself writing about independence and self-reliance without mentioning the family situation that created these challenges. During my final semester at community college, I worked overtime whenever Stevens Manufacturing offered it. Saturday shifts, holiday pay, anything to accumulate the funds necessary for university enrollment. My savings account grew slowly but steadily: $500, then $800, eventually reaching $1,500 by graduation day. That graduation ceremony took place on a humid Thursday afternoon in May. 27 students received associate degrees in engineering technology. My parents didn't attend. Jessica was busy with finals at State University. I sat alone in the folding chair, listening to the dean discuss achievement and perseverance, thinking about the journey ahead. The Christmas dinner incident during my 24th year crystallized everything I'd suspected about my family's priorities. We gathered at the old ranch house, the dining room decorated with Jessica's latest academic achievements, dean's list, certificates, scholarship announcements, and acceptance letters for graduate programs. I graduated last week. I announced quietly during the main course, my voice barely audible over the conversation about Jessica's upcoming master's degree program in art history. Frank looked up from his mashed potatoes with mild irritation. Community college doesn't count as real education, Damon. Jessica's getting her master's degree from a prestigious university. Margaret nodded emphatically. We invested in Jessica because she showed promise. You chose your path. The words hit like physical blows. 4 years of back-breaking work, sleepless nights, and financial sacrifice reduced to a dismissive comment about choosing my path. Jessica continued cutting her turkey, acting as if the conversation didn't concern her. I earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, I said, my voice gaining strength. From Ohio Technical University, with a 3.8 grade point average. That's nice, honey, Margaret replied with the same tone she used when complimenting the weather. Pass the gravy, would you? That night, driving back to my small apartment near the university, I finally understood the true nature of my family's dynamics. They hadn't simply decided to stop supporting me financially. They had actively chosen to ignore my achievements while celebrating Jessica's progress. The favoritism wasn't accidental or temporary, it was deliberate and permanent. At 25, everything began changing rapidly. Hartwell Industries, a mid-sized engineering firm specializing in renewable energy projects, offered me a junior engineer position with a starting salary of $52,000 annually. After years of living on $20,000 warehouse wages, the increase felt like winning the lottery. My first real apartment occupied the second floor of a converted Victorian house downtown. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and windows that actually opened properly. The rent cost $800 monthly, nearly triple what I'd paid for the garage space, but having a proper kitchen and living room felt luxurious beyond description. The work at Hartwell challenged me in completely different ways than factory labor. Instead of lifting heavy parts, I spent hours designing wind turbine support structures and calculating load distributions for solar panel installations. My colleagues, mostly other young engineers, treated me with professional respect. Nobody asked about my family background or educational financing. During lunch breaks, I often walked to the nearby bank to deposit portions of my paychecks into a savings account earmarked for future homeownership. The banker, Mrs. Rodriguez, became familiar with my regular visits and conservative spending habits. She explained various mortgage options and down payment requirements, helping me understand the pathway from renting to owning property. Meanwhile, Jessica graduated from State University with her bachelor's degree in art history. The ceremony required a weekend trip for my parents, complete with hotel reservations and celebration dinners. They posted dozens of photos on social media, beaming with pride beside their accomplished daughter. Jessica moved back into the family home immediately after graduation, claiming she needed time to explore career options in her field. My parents welcomed this arrangement, converting the basement into a comfortable living space with new furniture and entertainment equipment. During a rare family gathering that summer, I discovered the true scope of their financial investment in Jessica's education. The conversation arose naturally when Frank complained about property taxes and monthly expenses. Between tuition room and board textbooks and everything else, we've probably spent $150,000 on Jessica's education, he said, shaking his head. But it's worth it for her future. $150,000. The number echoed in my mind for days afterward. I had paid every penny of my own education costs, accumulating modest debt that I'd already begun repaying aggressively. Jessica's entire academic experience from freshman orientation to graduation ceremony had been fully funded by our parents. Now she's looking at master's programs, Margaret added proudly. Art history programs at really prestigious schools. The connections alone will be worth the investment. Graduate school meant another 2 years of parental support, easily pushing their total investment past $200,000. Meanwhile, they'd never contributed a single dollar to my education or living expenses since my 20th birthday. My promotion to project manager came 18 months into my employment at Hartwell Industries. The new position included responsibility for coordinating renewable energy installations across 3 counties, managing subcontractor relationships, and ensuring projects met environmental compliance standards. My salary increased to $65,000 annually. The additional income allowed me to accelerate my house fund contributions. Every month I transferred $1,500 into the dedicated savings account. My living expenses remained deliberately modest grocery shopping at discount stores, buying generic brands, avoiding unnecessary purchases. The discipline felt natural after years of extreme frugality. Jessica, meanwhile, announced her intention to find herself through European backpacking before starting graduate school. The proposed trip included 6 weeks traveling through France, Italy, and Spain, staying in hostels, and exploring art museums. She deserves this experience, Margaret explained when I learned about the trip. After working so hard in college, she needs time to recharge and gain international perspective. The European adventure would cost approximately $8,000, covering flights, accommodations, meals, and cultural activities. Jessica researched the trip extensively, creating detailed itineraries and booking reservations for museums and guided tours. Then came the request that changed our family dynamic permanently. "We were hoping you could contribute $5,000 toward Jessica's trip," Frank said during a Sunday phone call. "As family support, she's your sister after all." I sat in my apartment, calculator in hand, looking at my carefully maintained budget spreadsheet. $5,000 represented more than 3 months of house fund contributions. The request assumed I should prioritize Jessica's leisure travel over my own major life goals. "I'm saving for a house down payment," I explained calmly. "Every dollar counts toward that goal." "You're being selfish," Margaret interjected, having picked up the extension phone. "Families should support each other. We supported you when you needed help." The claim about supporting me felt surreal. They had explicitly cut off all financial assistance when I turned 20. Every achievement since that moment had come through my own efforts and sacrifices. "I appreciate the thought," I replied carefully, But I can't contribute to Jessica's trip. My savings are committed to homeownership. The conversation ended abruptly. For the next 2 weeks, neither parent contacted me. Jessica's social media posts showed continued trip planning with no indication that my refusal had affected their European vacation financing. Jessica's 26th birthday party took place at the family home on a warm Saturday afternoon in October. Extended relatives attended Aunt Patricia and Uncle Tom cousin Sarah with her husband and several family friends from the neighborhood. The gathering felt festive with decorations and a professionally made cake. After the gift opening ceremony, Margaret called for everyone's attention. The assembled group quieted as she stood beside Jessica's chair, smiling broadly. "We have an announcement about Jessica's future," she began, her voice carrying across the backyard. "When Frank and I are ready to retire, Jessica will inherit the family home and the 20 acres surrounding it. The property had been in our family for 3 generations. My grandfather built the original house in 1952, and my father had expanded it significantly during the 1980s. 20 acres in rural Ohio represented substantial value, especially with recent development pressures in the area. Jessica needs security more than Damon," Frank explained to the gathered relatives. "He's proven he doesn't need help, so everything goes to Jessica." Aunt Patricia's face showed obvious shock. Uncle Tom shifted uncomfortably in his lawn chair. Cousin Sarah glanced between me and Jessica with confusion. The announcement had blindsided everyone except my immediate family. "This isn't right," Aunt Patricia whispered as the crowd began dispersing. "You've worked harder than anyone, honey." That evening, driving home to my apartment, I finally understood my complete exile from the family's future plans. Not only had they refused to support my education or early career, they'd now eliminated me from any inheritance considerations. Jessica would receive everything: the house, the land, and whatever financial assets remained when my parents passed away. The realization brought unexpected relief rather than anger. Their decision removed any obligation I might have felt to maintain close family relationships based on future expectations. I was truly independent now, free to build my own life, without considering their approval or disapproval. My second promotion at Hartwell Industries arrived just after my 27th birthday. Senior project manager meant overseeing renewable energy installations across 5 counties, coordinating with municipal governments, and managing multi-million-dollar contracts. The salary jumped to $78,000 annually, finally placing me in solidly middle-class territory. The promotion celebration consisted of treating myself to dinner at a real restaurant rather than cooking ramen noodles at home. Sitting alone in the booth at Murphy's Steakhouse, I calculated my financial position on a napkin. $40,000 in the house fund, minimal debt, and steady income growth. For the first time since turning 20, home ownership felt achievable rather than aspirational. Jessica's European adventure had concluded successfully, based on hundreds of social media photos documenting museums, cafes, and scenic landscapes. The trip cost exactly $15,000, according to Margaret, who mentioned the figure while complaining about credit card balances during a brief phone conversation. "But she gained so much cultural sophistication," Margaret explained. "You can't put a price on international experience. $15,000 could have covered a substantial portion of a house down payment. Instead, it funded 6 weeks of vacation photography and restaurant meals across 3 countries. The contrast between our financial priorities couldn't have been starker." Amanda Brooks, my realtor, specialized in helping first-time homebuyers navigate the complex process of property acquisition. An energetic woman in her 40s, with extensive knowledge of local neighborhoods, she understood my specific requirements: 3 bedrooms, good school district, reasonable commute to Hartwell Industries, and total cost under $200,000. "The market's competitive," she explained during our initial meeting at her office downtown. "But with your credit score and down payment, you'll have strong offers. We just need to find the right property." Our house hunting expeditions took place on weekends, visiting properties throughout the greater metropolitan area, ranch houses in established neighborhoods, newer constructions in developing subdivisions, and occasionally older homes with character but requiring significant updates. Each property offered different advantages and compromises. The colonial house in Riverside Heights caught my attention immediately. Built in 1995, it featured 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, an attached garage, and a fenced backyard perfect for future entertaining. The neighborhood consisted primarily of young families and working professionals with well-maintained lawns and quiet streets. $195,000, Amanda announced as we walked through the living room. The sellers are motivated because they're relocating for work. This could be perfect for your situation. Standing in the empty house, I could envision my future clearly. A real kitchen with full-sized appliances instead of a hot plate. Bedrooms for guests and a home office. Space to host friends and colleagues without apologizing for cramped conditions. My parents discovered my house hunting activities through Jessica, who had noticed real estate photos on my social media accounts. The discovery triggered immediate family intervention attempts that escalated rapidly in both frequency and intensity. "You're being ungrateful," Margaret declared during a heated phone conversation. "After everything we've done for this family, you're going to exclude Jessica from your success." The accusation of ungratefulness felt particularly galling. They had contributed nothing to my education, career development, or financial stability. Every achievement had come through my own efforts, while they focused exclusively on Jessica's needs and preferences. Frank's approach involved more direct manipulation. "You should put Jessica's name on the deed," he suggested during an unannounced visit to my apartment. "For family unity. She needs investment opportunities and housing security." The legal documents they'd prepared through their attorney Thomas Brennan outlined a partnership agreement requiring Jessica to own 50% of any property I purchased. The paperwork claimed this arrangement would protect family assets and ensure Jessica's long-term financial stability. "We've already consulted with Tom Brennan about this," Margaret explained, spreading the documents across my kitchen table. "He says this protects everyone's interests." Reading through the proposed agreement, I realized they'd been planning this manipulation for weeks. The document included detailed provisions for Jessica's occupancy rights decision-making authority over property modifications and guaranteed equity accumulation regardless of her financial contributions. "I won't sign anything," I said firmly, sliding the papers back across the table. "This house represents 8 years of my work and sacrifice. Jessica has no claim to any portion of it." Frank's face reddened with anger. "After everything we've done for this family, you're going to be selfish. Jessica sacrificed her inheritance expectations when you decided to be independent." The circular logic amazed me. First, they'd excluded me from family financial support and inheritance plans. Now they claimed Jessica had sacrificed something in that process, entitling her to a share of my independent achievements. "What exactly did Jessica sacrifice?" I asked. "She received full college funding, graduate school support, European vacation money, and the promise of inheriting the family property. Where's the sacrifice in that arrangement?" Margaret's voice took on a wounded tone. "Jessica feels abandoned by her successful brother. She needs to know family means something to you." Jessica herself remained conspicuously absent from these confrontations, allowing our parents to advocate for her interests while she avoided direct responsibility for the manipulation attempts. The Sunday family dinner, where they presented the formal legal documents, represented the final escalation of their pressure campaign. The setting felt deliberately orchestrated, Jessica wearing a sad expression, both parents united in their demands, and official paperwork lending authority to their position. "Tom Brennan says this arrangement protects family assets," Frank explained, pointing to specific clauses in the partnership agreement. "Jessica gets housing security and you get family support for your investment." The attorney had structured the document to appear mutually beneficial while actually transferring half my investment to Jessica without any corresponding financial contribution from her. She would gain 50% ownership of a house purchased entirely with my money funded through my labor and sacrifice. When you decided to be independent, Jessica lost her brother's support, Margaret added tearfully. This gives her back some security in an uncertain world. Their manipulation tactics had evolved from simple requests to emotional blackmail supported by legal documentation. They'd weaponized the concept of family loyalty to justify transferring my assets to Jessica under the guise of sibling support and unity. I'm not signing anything that gives Jessica ownership of property she didn't pay for, I stated clearly. This house represents my work, my savings, and my future. She's welcome to purchase her own property with her own money. Frank exploded with rage. After everything we've done for this family, you're going to be selfish. You're destroying family unity for your own greed. Margaret burst into theatrical tears. I never thought I'd see the day when my own son would abandon his sister's needs for personal gain. Jessica finally spoke, her voice quivering with practiced emotion. I just want to feel like I have a brother who cares about my future. Is that too much to ask? The performance felt rehearsed and manipulative, designed to guilt me into surrendering half my investment to someone who'd contributed nothing toward its accumulation. They'd spent months planning this legal and emotional assault on my financial independence. That evening, after they'd left my apartment in frustrated anger, I sat alone considering the full scope of their manipulation. They'd raised Jessica with the expectation that family resources would always support her lifestyle and security needs. Now that she faced the reality of independent adulthood, they sought to transfer some of my achievements to her through legal coercion and emotional manipulation. The realization crystallized my understanding of the family dynamics that had shaped our relationship since childhood. I represented a threat to their narrative about Jessica's special status and need for protection. My success without their support challenged their justifications for the decades of favoritism and preferential treatment. More importantly, I understood that signing any partnership agreement would establish a precedent for future demands. If they could successfully claim half my house, what would prevent them from seeking portions of my retirement savings, future salary increases, or other investments? The manipulation would never end once I demonstrated willingness to surrender my assets under family pressure. The closing on the Riverside Heights property took place on a crisp Tuesday morning in November at the offices of Riverside Title Company. Amanda Brooks sat beside me as I signed document after document, each page representing another step toward independent homeownership. My hands remained steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Congratulations," the title attorney said as she handed me the keys. "You're officially a homeowner." The drive to my new house felt surreal. 8 years of grinding work, financial sacrifice, and family manipulation had led to this moment. I pulled into the driveway of my 3-bedroom colonial, turned off the engine, and sat quietly for several minutes, absorbing the reality of genuine property ownership. The house key turned smoothly in the front door lock. Walking through the empty rooms, I mentally placed furniture and planned improvements. The master bedroom would accommodate a real bed instead of the futon I'd used for years. The second bedroom could serve as a home office. The third bedroom would remain available for future guests or life changes. My first night in the house involved sleeping on an air mattress in the living room while waiting for furniture deliveries. The silence felt different from apartment living. No upstairs neighbors walking around, no shared walls transmitting conversations and television sounds. Just the quiet settling of my own home around me. The furniture shopping process required careful budgeting and practical decisions. A modest bedroom set from a local furniture store, a basic dining table with 4 chairs and a comfortable couch for the living room. Everything functional rather than luxurious, but representing my own choices and preferences For the first time in my adult life, 3 weeks after closing, I arrived home from work to find my parents' car in the driveway. They'd driven from Millerville without calling ahead, apparently assuming they had unlimited access to my property and time. Margaret stood on the front porch holding a covered dish. "We brought you a housewarming casserole," she announced cheerfully, as if the recent partnership agreement confrontation had never occurred. Frank carried a small toolbox. "Thought you might need help with settling in," he said, his tone suggesting forgiveness for my previous unreasonableness. Jessica emerged from the back seat wearing designer jeans and carrying a bouquet of flowers. "Can we see the house?" she asked with manufactured enthusiasm. The unannounced visit felt like a territorial invasion rather than a family celebration. I hadn't invited them over because the partnership agreement conflict remained unresolved, and their presence implied an expectation of ongoing involvement in my housing situation. "I appreciate the thought," I said carefully, "but I'm not really ready for visitors yet." Margaret's expression shifted to hurt surprise. "We just want to see where you're living." "Is that too much to ask from your family?" The guilt manipulation began immediately, but I'd learned to recognize the patterns. Allowing them inside would establish a precedent for future unannounced visits and implicit claims on my space and time. Frank pushed past me toward the front door. "Don't be ridiculous, we're your parents." The tour of my house became an evaluation session disguised as family interest. Margaret criticized my furniture choices as too plain and suggested Jessica could help with decorating. Frank examined the electrical outlets and plumbing fixtures while making comments about improvements I should consider. I yawned. "This spare bedroom would be perfect for Jessica when she visits," Margaret announced, standing in what I'd planned as my home office. "She could keep some clothes here and have a place to stay when she's in town." Jessica wandered through the rooms with an appraising expression, commenting on the size and potential of each space. "The kitchen's nice," she said. "Big enough for serious cooking." Their behavior suggested they viewed my house as partially theirs, despite having contributed nothing to its purchase. The unspoken assumption was that family ownership transcended legal documentation and individual achievement. "Jessica's thinking about looking for work in this area," Frank mentioned casually while examining my living room layout. "Having a place to stay would make job searching much easier." The hint couldn't have been more transparent. They wanted Jessica to live in my house rent-free while pursuing employment opportunities, effectively treating my investment as family property available for her convenience. "I bought this house for myself," I said clearly. "I'm not looking for roommates or long-term guests." Margaret's face showed theatrical shock. "You deny housing to your own sister after everything we've done to keep this family together." The confrontation escalated rapidly from there. Frank accused me of abandoning family values for selfish material gain. Margaret claimed I owed the family consideration for raising me properly and providing the foundation for my success. Jessica remained silent, but allowed tears to flow down her cheeks, creating visual emphasis for their accusations. "You're tearing this family apart," Frank declared angrily. "All for a house that you could share with your sister without any real sacrifice." Their interpretation of my home ownership as a family resource rather than individual achievement revealed the depth of their entitlement expectations. They genuinely believed that my success created obligations to support Jessica's lifestyle and housing needs. "I think you should leave," I said firmly, moving toward the front door. "This is my property, and you're not welcome here with these demands." Margaret gathered her covered dish with wounded dignity. "I never thought I'd see the day when my own son would choose possessions over family." Frank slammed his toolbox shut with unnecessary force. "You'll regret this selfishness, Damon. Family is all you really have in this world." Jessica's performance concluded with a heartbroken look toward the spare bedroom. "I just wanted to feel like I had a place in my brother's life," she whispered. They left in their car without another word, but their body language communicated profound disapproval and ongoing determination to change my perspective on family obligations. 2 weeks later, the certified mail arrived on a Thursday afternoon. The return address showed the law offices of Thomas Brennan, attorney at law. Inside the official envelope, legal documents outlined a civil lawsuit against me for theft of family assets and unjust enrichment. Reading through the complaint, I felt a combination of shock and inevitability. They'd actually filed a lawsuit claiming I'd used family resources and stolen opportunities that rightfully belonged to Jessica to purchase my house. The legal language dressed up their entitlement expectations in official terminology that made their demands seem legitimate and legally supported. The lawsuit demanded that Jessica be granted 50% ownership of my house, or equivalent cash payment of $97,500. Additionally, they sought compensation for emotional distress caused by my family abandonment and deliberate sabotage of sibling relationships. Most shocking were the detailed financial records attached to the complaint. They documented every dinner I'd attended at the family home since age 20, calculating the cost of my meals, and claiming I owed reimbursement for family subsidies I'd received. The list included Christmas dinners, birthday celebrations, and casual visits with dollar amounts assigned to each occasion. According to their calculations, I'd received $37,400 worth of family subsidies over 8 years, including estimated grocery costs, utility usage during visits, and investment in family relationship maintenance. They claimed this amount represented funding I should have contributed to Jessica's education and lifestyle expenses. The legal document also alleged that money I'd saved by living in Mrs. Patterson's garage apartment constituted an improper family subsidy worth $30,000 over 4 years. Their logic suggested that because my parents had allowed me to find affordable housing independently, they'd somehow provided financial assistance, equivalent to the difference between my actual rent and market rate apartment costs. Most disturbing was their itemized list of Jessica's expenses they claimed I should have contributed to over 8 years. Graduate school tuition, living expenses during her master's program, the European vacation car insurance, health insurance, clothing allowances, and entertainment costs totaled $87,000. They argued that as her brother, I had shirked family financial obligations while selfishly accumulating personal wealth. The lawsuit portrayed my independent success as a betrayal of family unity and a theft of resources that should have been shared with Jessica. Their attorney had crafted legal language that transformed my work ethic and financial responsibility into evidence of greed and family abandonment. Reading through the complaint for the third time, I realized they'd been planning this legal action for months while publicly pressuring me to sign the partnership agreement. The lawsuit represented their backup plan when emotional manipulation and guilt tactics failed to achieve their desired outcome. The implications extended beyond financial demands. If they successfully convinced a court that my achievements created legal obligations to support Jessica's lifestyle, the judgment would establish precedent for ongoing claims on my future earnings, investments, and property acquisitions. They sought not just half my current house, but legal confirmation of their right to Jessica's share of my lifetime success. That evening, I called Amanda Brooks to discuss the situation. Her immediate recommendation was to contact a defense attorney specializing in family financial disputes. The lawsuit's scope and complexity required professional legal representation to protect both my current assets and future financial independence. Sarah Wellington's law office occupied the 15th floor of downtown's newest professional building, with windows overlooking the city center and certificates from Harvard Law School prominently displayed on her mahogany-paneled walls. Her reputation for handling complex family financial disputes had earned recommendations from both Amanda Brooks and my bank's legal department. "This is one of the most aggressive family manipulation cases I've encountered," she said after reviewing the lawsuit documents. "They're essentially claiming that your success creates legal obligations to fund your sister's lifestyle in perpetuity." Sarah's initial case assessment revealed the sophistication of their legal strategy. Attorney Thomas Brennan had structured their claims to exploit emotional sympathy while making technical arguments about family financial interdependence and shared resources. The lawsuit combined legitimate-sounding legal terminology with manipulative personal narratives designed to portray me as a greedy family destroyer. "We need to understand their full financial picture," Sarah explained. "If they're claiming you owe Jessica support, we need to document exactly how much they've spent on her compared to their treatment of you." The discovery process began with subpoenas for my parents' bank records, credit card statements, tax returns, and insurance documents covering the past 10 years. Sarah's investigators also requested documentation from State University regarding Jessica's education financing, including any scholarships, grants, or financial aid she'd received. Meanwhile, Brennan filed additional motions seeking temporary restraining orders to prevent me from selling or refinancing my house pending lawsuit resolution. He argued that my property represented disputed family assets that should be protected from dissipation while the court determined ownership rights. "They're trying to freeze your ability to use your own property," Sarah explained during one of our weekly strategy meetings. "It's a common tactic in asset disputes, but legally questionable, given that you purchased the house entirely with documented personal funds." The discovery phase revealed financial records that exceeded even my worst expectations about the scope of their favoritism. Bank statements showed consistent monthly transfers to Jessica totaling between $1,500 and $2,500 over 6 years. Credit card records documented luxury purchases, vacation expenses, and lifestyle costs that painted a picture of complete financial dependence. Most damaging to their lawsuit were Jessica's graduate school financial aid applications. She'd claimed family poverty and financial hardship to qualify for need-based scholarships and grants worth $63,000 over 2 years. The applications included sworn statements about family income and assets that directly contradicted the lifestyle expenses documented in my parents' financial records. "She committed education fraud," Sarah announced during our 4th strategy meeting. The financial aid applications claim poverty while bank records show luxury spending. That's federal criminal territory. Simultaneously, the discovery process revealed my parents had opened 3 credit cards in my name when I turned 18, making minimum payments for 8 years while accumulating debt totaling $23,400. Every monthly statement had been sent to their address, and the charges included expenses for Jessica's clothing, entertainment, and miscellaneous lifestyle costs. Identity theft and credit fraud. Sarah said, highlighting specific transactions on the credit card statements. "They've been using your credit profile to fund your sister's expenses while you worked double shifts and ate ramen noodles." The depositions began in February with Jessica scheduled first. Under oath, she admitted knowing about the credit cards opened in my name and confirmed she'd benefited directly from purchases made with those accounts. When asked about the discrepancies between her financial aid applications and her actual lifestyle, she claimed she'd been advised by family about how to complete the forms. "I thought the applications were asking about my personal income, not family support." She testified, contradicting signed statements where she'd specifically declared family financial hardship as the basis for need-based aid eligibility. My parents' depositions proved even more revealing. Frank admitted they'd never intended to support my education or career development after age 20, viewing me as sufficiently capable of independent success. Margaret acknowledged they'd spent over $170,000 on Jessica's education and lifestyle, while contributing nothing to my achievements. "We invested in Jessica because she needed more help," Margaret testified under oath. "Damon was always more self-sufficient." When asked about the credit cards opened in my name, Frank claimed they'd intended to build my credit history while helping with family expenses. The explanation collapsed when Sarah presented evidence that I'd been excluded from all family financial planning and had never consented to or been informed about the credit accounts. During my own deposition, I testified about the years of financial independence, family manipulation attempts, and systematic favoritism that had characterized our relationship since my 20th birthday. The transcript documented my work history, education financing, and property purchase timeline with bank records supporting every claim. They're seeking 50% ownership of property purchased entirely with my documented earnings. I testified. They contributed nothing to my education, career development, or home purchase. The lawsuit represents an attempt to seize assets they had no role in creating. Brennan's questioning focused on family dinners and holiday gatherings, attempting to establish that I'd received substantial family support through shared meals and social inclusion. His strategy involved quantifying normal family interactions as financial subsidies that created legal obligations to share my property with Jessica. How many Christmas dinners did you attend at the family home? He asked, consulting detailed records they'd apparently maintained for years. I attended family gatherings as an invited guest, I replied. Sharing holiday meals doesn't create legal ownership of my independently purchased property. The interrogation continued for 6 hours, with Brennan attempting to characterize every family interaction as evidence of ongoing financial support that contradicted my claims of independence. His approach felt desperate and legally questionable, but revealed the extent of their documentation and planning for this lawsuit. Meanwhile, the case attracted attention from my professional colleagues at Hartwell Industries. Several coworkers expressed support and disbelief that family members would sue over independently achieved success. My supervisor, Robert Hayes, assured me that the legal situation wouldn't affect my employment, but I noticed increased scrutiny of my performance and availability for overtime projects. The stress of ongoing litigation began affecting my sleep appetite and concentration. Weekly attorney meetings, document review sessions, and preparation for additional depositions consumed most of my free time. The house I'd worked 8 years to purchase now felt tainted by legal uncertainty and family hostility. During one particularly difficult week, I received an unexpected phone call from Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. She'd learned about the lawsuit through family communications and wanted to express her support for my position. "This is wrong, Damon," she said quietly, apparently calling from work to avoid family detection. "You've earned everything you have. They have no right to sue you for being successful." Patricia's call provided emotional validation during an increasingly isolating legal battle. She confirmed that extended family members were troubled by the lawsuit and questioning my parents' motivations and methods. "I'm thinking about testifying on your behalf," she added, "if Sarah thinks my testimony would help your case." The possibility of family support, even from extended relatives, offered hope that not everyone viewed my independence as selfishness or family abandonment. Patricia's willingness to publicly oppose my parents demonstrated that their manipulation hadn't convinced all family members of their victimhood narrative. As the discovery phase concluded, Sarah began preparing our defense strategy around the themes of independence family fraud and manipulative entitlement. The evidence clearly showed that I'd achieved success without family support, while they'd systematically defrauded government programs and my credit profile to fund Jessica's privileged lifestyle. "We're going to destroy their credibility," Sarah promised during our final preparation meeting. "The fraud evidence is overwhelming, and their lawsuit claims are legally baseless. But we need to be prepared for them to escalate their tactics as they realize they're losing." The turning point in our legal strategy came when Sarah hired Marcus Chen, a private investigator specializing in financial fraud cases. Marcus's background included 15 years with the FBI's white-collar crime division and extensive experience with family asset manipulation schemes. "Your parents have been running a sophisticated fraud operation," Marcus explained during our first meeting at Sarah's office. "The credit identity theft education fraud and systematic documentation suggest long-term planning and criminal intent," Marcus's investigation expanded beyond the immediate lawsuit to examine the broader pattern of financial crimes my family had committed over nearly a decade. His team requested additional bank records, insurance documents, and government agency files related to Jessica's scholarship applications and benefits claims. The first major breakthrough came from Jessica's federal financial aid records. Marcus discovered she'd applied for and received need-based Pell Grants totaling $18,400 over 4 years by claiming family poverty and financial hardship. The applications included false statements about family income assets and living situation that qualified her for maximum federal assistance. She signed sworn declarations claiming family income under $30,000 annually. Marcus reported pointing to specific sections of the aid applications. Your parents' tax returns show joint income exceeding $90,000 in those same years. The education fraud extended beyond Pell Grants to include state-funded scholarships, work-study programs, and fee waivers that Jessica had obtained through false financial hardship claims. The total value of improperly obtained aid exceeded $47,000 across her undergraduate and graduate programs. Simultaneously, Marcus's investigation revealed additional credit accounts opened in my name without my knowledge or consent. Beyond the 3 credit cards I'd already discovered, they'd opened a department store account, a gas station credit line, and a home improvement store card. All accounts had been used exclusively for Jessica's expenses and lifestyle purchases. 7 unauthorized credit accounts totaling $31,000 in accumulated debt. Marcus announced, spreading the documentation across Sarah's conference table. Every account was opened with your personal information, but used exclusively by your sister and parents. The systematic identity theft represented serious federal crimes with potential prison sentences. Marcus recommended reporting the credit fraud to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division and pursuing criminal charges rather than simply seeking civil remedies through the lawsuit defense. Mrs. Patterson, my elderly former landlord, proved to be an invaluable character witness. At 78 years old, she'd observed my work ethic and financial struggles during the 4 years I'd rented her garage apartment. Her testimony provided independent verification of my complete financial independence and family estrangement. That boy worked harder than anyone I've ever seen, she told Sarah during her deposition preparation. Up before dawn, every day home after dark most nights. Never asked for help with anything, never missed a rent payment. His family never visited once in 4 years. Mrs. Patterson's recollections contradicted my parents' lawsuit claims about ongoing family support and financial interdependence. Her testimony established that I'd lived completely independently while maintaining minimal family contact during the crucial years of my education and early career development. The investigation also revealed Margaret's social media activity during Jessica's graduate school years. Hundreds of photos and posts documented expensive vacations, restaurant meals, shopping trips, and luxury purchases that directly contradicted the poverty claims on Jessica's financial aid applications. She's posting pictures of European vacation meals, while Jessica's aid applications claim the family can't afford basic necessities. Marcus showed us printed social media screenshots. The timeline overlap is perfect evidence of systematic fraud. During one European vacation post, Margaret had photographed herself wearing jewelry worth thousands of dollars while standing in front of an expensive hotel. The image was posted 3 days after Jessica submitted financial aid renewal applications, claiming severe family financial hardship and inability to contribute to education costs. The Stevens Manufacturing Human Resources Department provided detailed employment records confirming my work history, wage progression, and complete independence from any family financial support. The documentation showed consistent full-time employment while attending school student loan payments directly from my paychecks and no emergency withdrawals or family assistance requests. Your employment records are impeccable, the HR director Linda Thompson confirmed during her deposition. Never missed payments on your student loan garnishments, never requested hardship deferrals or family emergency leave. You handled everything independently. Ohio Technical University's registrar office provided similar documentation showing I'd paid all tuition and fees through personal earnings student loans and work-study income. The records confirmed 0 family contributions to my education costs and no emergency financial aid requests that might suggest family support. Hartwell Industries CEO David Morrison agreed to provide a character reference focusing on my professional development and work performance. His testimony would establish my reputation for integrity, independence, and ethical behavior in professional settings. Damon represents everything we value in engineering professionals, Morrison stated during his deposition preparation. Self-motivated, technically excellent, and completely reliable. I've never encountered questions about his character or professional judgment. As our evidence accumulation continued, Sarah filed criminal referrals with multiple agencies. The education fraud allegations went to the Department of Education's Office of Inspector General. The identity theft and credit fraud evidence was forwarded to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. The systematic benefits fraud required reporting to state and federal agencies responsible for oversight of aid programs. We're not just defending against their lawsuit anymore, Sarah explained during our strategy session. We're prosecuting them for years of criminal activity that funded Jessica's lifestyle while you struggled independently. The criminal referrals triggered federal investigations that operated independently from our civil lawsuit defense. FBI agents began interviewing witnesses, subpoenaing financial records, and building criminal cases against all 3 family members for conspiracy fraud and identity theft. When Attorney Brennan learned about the criminal investigations, he immediately contacted Sarah about settlement negotiations. His initial offer involved dropping the lawsuit in exchange for my agreement not to pursue criminal charges against my family members. He's panicking, Sarah observed after reviewing Brennan's settlement proposal. The criminal exposure is significant, and he knows their civil case is collapsing under the weight of fraud evidence. I rejected the settlement offer immediately. The years of manipulation, identity theft, and systematic fraud deserved criminal prosecution rather than private resolution. Jessica and my parents had committed serious crimes while portraying themselves as victims of my selfishness and family abandonment. They made deliberate choices to defraud government programs and steal my identity, I told Sarah during our settlement discussion. Criminal charges ensure this behavior has real consequences. The investigation's scope expanded when Marcus discovered my parents had also filed fraudulent tax returns claiming Jessica as a dependent while she received need-based aid based on claims of financial independence. The conflicting positions on dependency status represented additional tax fraud that increased their criminal exposure. They claimed her as a dependent for tax benefits while she claimed independence for aid eligibility, Marcus explained. You can't have both simultaneously. That's systematic tax fraud spanning multiple years. By late spring, the investigation had documented a comprehensive criminal conspiracy involving identity theft, education, fraud, tax fraud, and conspiracy charges. The evidence package filled 3 bankers' boxes and included hundreds of documents, witness statements, and expert analyses of the financial crimes. Federal prosecutors agreed to pursue criminal charges after reviewing the evidence compilation. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Ohio filed formal indictments against Margaret Frank and Jessica for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, education benefits fraud, and tax evasion. This is one of the most systematic family fraud schemes we've encountered. The federal prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Stevens explained during our witness preparation meeting, the documentation and evidence quality are exceptional. The criminal indictments effectively ended Brennan's civil lawsuit. He withdrew all claims and dissolved the case rather than continue civil proceedings while his clients faced federal criminal prosecution. The lawsuit that had threatened my home and financial security collapsed completely under the weight of criminal evidence. The federal courthouse in downtown Cincinnati buzzed with activity on the morning my family faced their criminal sentencing. 8 months of plea negotiations had concluded with guilty agreements for all 3 defendants, sparing the necessity of a lengthy trial while ensuring appropriate criminal consequences for their systematic fraud. Margaret and Frank pled guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion. Their plea agreement included 18 months in federal prison, 5 years of supervised probation, and full restitution to all defrauded government programs. The financial penalties totaled $123,000 in fines, interest, and administrative costs. Jessica's plea agreement reflected her cooperation with federal investigators and acknowledgement of manipulation by her parents. She received 12 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised probation, and a lifetime ban from receiving federal education benefits. Her criminal conviction would permanently affect her employment prospects and professional licensing eligibility. The defendants engaged in a multi-year conspiracy to defraud federal and state programs while systematically exploiting their son's and brother's identity for personal financial gain, Judge Patricia Williamson announced during the sentencing hearing. Their crimes were not impulsive mistakes, but calculated schemes that continued for nearly a decade. The courtroom proceedings felt surreal after 2 years of family manipulation and legal conflict. Watching my parents and sister stand before a federal judge to receive prison sentences provided closure I hadn't expected to experience when this journey began. Thomas Brennan faced ethics sanctions from the State Bar Association for knowingly filing frivolous lawsuit claims based on fraudulent information provided by his clients. His law license was suspended for 6 months, and he was required to complete ethics education programs before returning to practice. Attorney Brennan should have recognized the questionable nature of his client's claims, the Ethics Review Board concluded. His failure to investigate obvious inconsistencies in their financial allegations constituted professional negligence. My house in Riverside Heights finally felt like the sanctuary I'd intended when I purchased it 3 years earlier. The legal clouds had lifted completely with clear title confirmed and no remaining threats to my ownership or financial security. The property value had increased substantially during the litigation period, adding unexpected equity to my investment. The credit fraud resolution required extensive work with all 3 credit bureaus to remove unauthorized accounts and repair my credit profile. Sarah's office coordinated with federal prosecutors to ensure proper documentation of the identity theft and fraudulent account openings. My credit score actually improved after the corrections reaching levels that qualified me for premium financial products and services. Extended family relationships required careful rebuilding after the criminal prosecutions concluded. Aunt Patricia had testified on my behalf during the federal investigation, providing crucial evidence about family dynamics and financial manipulation patterns she'd observed over the years. "I should have spoken up sooner," Patricia admitted during our first post-trial conversation. "I knew their treatment of you was wrong, but I didn't realize the extent of their criminal behavior." Cousin Sarah and her husband hosted a genuine housewarming party 6 months after the sentencing, inviting extended family members who'd supported my position throughout the legal battle. The gathering felt like a true family celebration for the first time in my adult life. Mrs. Patterson, now 81, had become a surrogate grandmother figure who visited weekly for dinner and conversation. Her testimony during the criminal investigation had been instrumental in establishing my complete financial independence and the fraud my family had committed. "I'm proud of you for standing up to them," she said during one of our Sunday dinners. "It took courage to fight back against family, but you protected yourself and other potential victims." The scholarship fund I established at Midwest Community College honored working students who paid their own education costs while supporting themselves independently. The Damon Mitchell Independence Scholarship provided $5,000 annually to students demonstrating exceptional self-reliance and academic achievement despite financial hardship. Your story inspires students who think college is impossible without family support, Dr. Martinez, my former engineering professor, explained during the scholarship announcement ceremony. You proved that determination and hard work can overcome any obstacle. Professional recognition at Hartwell Industries included promotion to department head for renewable energy engineering with salary increasing to $95,000 annually. The company's leadership viewed my integrity during the family legal crisis as evidence of character and ethical standards that aligned with corporate values. You handled an impossible situation with grace and principle, CEO David Morrison said during my promotion announcement. That's exactly the leadership qualities we need in senior positions. The community response to my story exceeded all expectations. Local media coverage of the federal fraud prosecutions had highlighted the systematic family manipulation and my determination to protect honest achievement against criminal exploitation. Letters of support arrived from strangers who'd faced similar family financial manipulation. One letter particularly moved me from a young woman whose parents had tried to claim ownership of her pharmacy business after she'd independently funded her education and professional licensing. Your courage to fight back gave me strength to protect my own achievements, she wrote. Thank you for showing that family manipulation doesn't have to win. The house gradually filled with meaningful furniture and personal touches that reflected my tastes and interests rather than budget constraints. A real dining set replaced the card table I'd used for years. Professional artwork hung on walls that had been bare throughout the legal battle. The master bedroom finally received the bedroom set I dreamed about during those nights sleeping on garage apartment floors. Weekend gatherings with genuine friends from work and the community created the family atmosphere I'd never experienced growing up. Barbecues in the backyard, holiday celebrations in the living room, and casual dinners around the real dining table provided the social connections that had been missing during years of family estrangement and manipulation. Sarah Wellington became more than my attorney. She became a trusted friend whose guidance extended beyond legal matters. Her wisdom about family dynamics and personal boundaries helped me navigate the complex emotions surrounding my parents' criminal convictions and imprisonment. You didn't destroy your family, she reminded me during one of our periodic check-ins. You exposed criminal behavior that was already destroying honest relationships. There's a difference between being the victim and being the cause. The most surprising development came 18 months after sentencing, when Jessica contacted me from federal prison seeking forgiveness and attempting to rebuild our relationship. Her letter expressed genuine remorse for the manipulation and fraud, acknowledging that she'd allowed our parents to convince her that she deserved a share of my achievements. I realize now that I never learned how to be independent because they convinced me I was entitled to support from everyone around me, she wrote. I want to learn how to succeed on my own merits like you did. Her request for forgiveness required careful consideration with Sarah's guidance. The criminal behavior had caused significant damage to my financial security professional reputation and emotional well-being. Forgiveness didn't require resuming a relationship or providing ongoing support to someone who'd participated in systematic fraud. You can forgive without forgetting, Sarah advised. Forgiveness is about your emotional health, not about enabling future manipulation. I wrote a brief response, acknowledging her letter, but declining to resume regular contact until she demonstrated genuine independence and accountability through actions rather than words. The relationship could potentially be rebuilt over time, but only if she proved her commitment to honest living and personal responsibility. Margaret and Frank never contacted me directly from prison. Their lack of communication suggested either continued resentment about the criminal consequences or embarrassment about the extent of their fraudulent behavior. Either way, I felt no obligation to initiate contact with people who'd systematically exploited my identity and achievements for nearly a decade. The financial restitution they owed to various government programs meant they'd lost their house and most assets by the time they completed their prison sentences. The 20 acres that were supposed to be Jessica's inheritance had been sold to pay criminal fines and legal costs. The family financial security they'd tried to protect through manipulation had been completely destroyed by their criminal choices. During quiet moments in my house, I reflected on the journey from that 20-year-old kid sleeping in a garage apartment to the successful professional homeowner I'd become. The path had been longer and more difficult than necessary because of family manipulation, but the independence I'd achieved felt solid and permanent. The life lesson that emerged from this experience centered on the difference between genuine love and manipulative control. Real family relationships celebrate individual achievement and independence rather than demanding sacrifice and surrender of personal success. True love encourages growth and self-reliance rather than creating dependence and obligation. People who genuinely care about your welfare want you to succeed and prosper independently. Those who demand shares of your achievements or claim ownership of your success are revealing their own inadequacies and entitlement expectations rather than expressing authentic love or concern. Standing in my kitchen on a Sunday morning preparing breakfast, in the house I'd earned through 8 years of determined effort, I felt the deep satisfaction of authentic achievement. Nobody could take away what I'd built through honest work and responsible financial management. The legal victory had confirmed not just my property ownership, but my right to succeed without surrendering that success to others who claimed family entitlement. The story proved that integrity and perseverance ultimately triumph over manipulation and fraud. Sometimes protecting your achievements requires fighting people who claim to love you but actually seek to exploit your success for their own benefit. The courage to stand up to family manipulation, even when it leads to criminal prosecutions and permanent estrangement, represents necessary self-protection rather than selfishness or family abandonment. My home became a symbol of independence earned through sacrifice and defended through principle. Every room represented years of hard work that nobody could diminish or claim. The deed in my name confirmed that honest achievement, protected by law and supported by community, creates lasting security that manipulation and fraud cannot touch. The greatest victory wasn't the house itself, but the knowledge that I'd built a life based on integrity, hard work, and personal responsibility. Those foundation principles would guide future decisions and relationships, ensuring that past manipulation could never again threaten the independence I'd fought so hard to achieve and protect. What challenges have you faced in your journey toward independence? And how did you find the strength to overcome family or social pressure that tried to limit your success? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story inspired you to protect your own achievements and set healthy boundaries with those who might try to exploit your hard work, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming adversity through determination and principle. Share this story with anyone who might be facing similar challenges with family manipulation or pressure to surrender their success to others who haven't earned it. Remember, your achievements belong to you, and protecting them isn't selfish. It's necessary for building the independent, successful life you've worked so hard to create. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and wisdom in your own journey toward financial independence and personal success.